Gather round, everyone, and prepare to be swept away by the thrilling exploits of Gino Cuddy, Clive Davis, and Nick Sheehan as they embark on a daring journey across the silent screen. They'll ride through the annals of film history, recounting the captivating saga of the silver screen's very first Western superstar. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Hart to Hart, the William S. Hart podcast.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode number 8 of Hart to Hart, the William S. Hart podcast. I am, of course, one of your co-hosts, Gino Cuddy, and I'm, of course, here with my regular co-hosts, Clive Davis and Nick Sheehan. Now, before we get into tonight's two films that we're going to be reviewing, which are The Square Deal Man and Wolf Lowry, we do have some feedback from our previous episode where we reviewed The Return of Draw Egan and The Gunfighter. And this bit of feedback comes directly from the man who supplied us with the copy of The Gunfighter, Mr. Christopher Bird. And this is what he had to say. Hi, Gino. I just listened to the latest episode this morning. Fantastic. I couldn't be more delighted at your reaction to this film. It was a lot of work tracking down the various elements and knitting them back together, and hearing reactions like yours, putting it almost up there with Hell's Hinges, makes it all worth it. Thank you all, and thank you too for the shout-outs. Much appreciated. If any more turns up, I'll certainly let you know and revisit the reconstruction. Best wishes and huge thanks, Chris. So I just figured I'd read that at the start of the show and say thank you again to Chris for supplying us with that beautiful reconstruction of a film that I believe needs to be reappraised. And hopefully someday more of that film turns up so that it could be reappraised in its complete form. But I'm happy that we at least got to take a gander at a fan's reconstruction of it. So thank you so much again, Chris, for that.
Yes.
So tonight we're going to be reviewing two films within William S. Hart's filmography. And those two films, as I stated before, are The Square Deal Man and Wolf Lowry. And I guess we should get into The Square Deal Man first, since it was first up. The Square Deal Man was released March 25th, 1917. It was produced by Triangle/KB under the supervision of Thomas H. Ince, and it was distributed by Triangle as well. It was in production between November 1st to December 14th, 1916, and the production cost was $24,757.73, which in 2025/2026 would be $731,245.68. The film was directed by William S. Hart with a story and screenplay by J.G. Hawkes. It was photographed by Joe August, and the art director was Robert Brunton. The cast consists of Jack Diamonds, being portrayed by William S. Hart, Virginia Ransom, being portrayed by Mary McIver, Two Spot Hargis, being portrayed by Joseph J. Dowling, Blossom, being portrayed by Mary Jane Irving, Colonel Ransom, being portrayed by J. Frank Burke, Pedro, being portrayed by Darrell Foss, Anastasio, being portrayed by Thomas Kurihara, Preaching Dan, being portrayed by Milton Ross, and Broadway Hammersley, being portrayed by Charles O. Rush. And the plot of this film is, after being labeled a parasite by a local parson, as well as a poker game gone wrong, where boisterous Colonel Ransom is killed, compulsive gambler Jack Diamonds vows to turn over a new leaf. He adopts a dying widow's infant daughter and takes charge of Ransom's ranch. Local ruffian Pedro pins Ransom's murder on Jack, and Ransom's daughter banishes him from the ranch. Before leaving, Jack and Pedro fight it out and Jack escapes. Jack returns to the ranch and sees Pedro try to rape Ransom's daughter. The two fight again and Jack kills Pedro. Jack rounds up the daughter, her nanny, his infant daughter, and they flee as Pedro's gang circles closer. Jack fights it out with the gang, and the Rangers round up the gang after being wounded. Ransom's daughter finds the deed on Jack, and they live happily ever after. Now, what did we think of The Square Deal Man?
Well, as for me, I have to say, across both of these, I'm wondering, and it'll be interesting to see going forward if this is the case or not. I'm wondering if we have plateaued because these both felt like slight step backwards for me after
Hmm.
some of the ones we've recently watched. Obviously, Hell's Hinges being, the kind of we're all agreed that's kind of the pinnacle thus far.
Right.
And you do get these peaks and troughs in people's careers, and I know coming along towards the end, we got the very highly regarded tumbleweeds. But again, that might be, we'll see when we get there, that might be highly regarded because it's actually been seen more than a lot of these other films, right? It having being a sound film, for example, making a big difference for some people.
Well, being
So,
to being a sound reissue of a silent film. Yes.
right, right. But so, yeah, so I'm wondering if we're going into a bit of a lull and then it peaks again, or if this, but for me, I have to say these two felt like they're not terrible by any means. They're perfectly fine, but they felt a lot more routine and
Hmm.
maybe, you know, laying on one's laurels like and the past few couple of shows I felt as if there's like a progression that we've been seeing the genre kind of being pushed a bit further each time, um and then these two have very comfortably been here done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you fellas feel. Both of them really, that's yeah, that's my take on these. I don't know if you agree with that or if you think there's a bit more to them or
Well, as far as my thoughts on Square Deal, man, I actually watched it, twice, or at least skimmed through it a second time. And both times that I watched it, I mean, the version that we watched was an alpha video copy. I mean, it's the only copy that's out there, so we gotta, thank Alpha for that. But it was a very rough copy,
Hmm.
and apparently this is an edited down version to like something resembling 47 minutes when the film was originally 5 reels or so. And so it jumps around a little bit, and honestly, I was a little confused by the time we got to the ending, where because it looked pretty bleak for William S. Hart towards the end, like it looked like he was going to get killed, and then boom, in the next scene, oh, he's fine. He just has
Right.
his arm in a sling, and I was like, what? Because it being a William S. Hart film, if he had been killed at the end, that would have been easily acceptable, given some of the other films that we've seen thus far, including the previous film that we reviewed, The Gunfighter.
Mhm.
Um, so the fact that they have him alive and well in the very next sequence, and all living happily ever after, is kind of an odd choice. I think for me. I mean, I do wish that we had a little bit more of him being, like that good bad man character in this. Like, I do wish that we got a more traditional progression of his character here. Like, as far as, I do wish that he didn't change so quickly within the first act of the film. You know, it's like his head is turned by the little widow's daughter there,
Mhm.
and that's where his heart really changes. And I don't know. I just wish that we got more of him being a raucous gambler, and more of that type of a character, instead of kind of being shown as a little bit of a softy at first, because it sort of removes some of the edge of the character, at least for me, because it's like you know in the beginning of the film, right away he's like he wants to donate like a couple of bucks to a charitable cause, and it's like I would have much rather have had him, guffaw, and laugh it off and say, ha ha ha, forget that widow. Let's continue our gambling in this house of ill repute, and that type deal. But we didn't really get that. We got William S. Hart as kind of like a softie here. And the other thing, and this will be something that we could discuss more when we finally get to Tumbleweeds, is I don't like it when William S. Hart has a sidekick. You know, like I thought that was an odd element to add to the film, to add to Spot Hargis as
Mm.
the old man, as William S. Hart's orphan son. Keeps calling him Pa throughout the
Yeah,
film.
it's a
Yeah.
weird thing, definitely. And it made me wonder, and Gino and Clive, you both may know more, well, in fact, you certainly will, than me. But like, when did that become a Western trope of like the old man
The
sidekick?
old coot.
Yeah, the old like
Yeah.
the comedy like prospecting type of like me. Like when did that is this the beginning of that, or is this already an established thing that William S. Hart's like, oh yeah, we got to have a little bit of that in our
Because the
film?
thing, once it starts, fucking hell, does it take a long time to get rid of it as well? Like, it's, I mean, you get like 2 decades of that stuff, right? At
Aw,
least.
Clive, you don't like Gabby Hayes or Fuzzy St. John? Come on.
Not really.
I personally love them, but I could see how one would not like them.
It's just that
Um,
it becomes such a trope, I suppose. And
yeah.
so it's fine the first couple of times you see it, and then oh Christ, here we go again. There's someone dang namming it in the
Yeah.
and it's just it just feels like so much filler. I'm sure it was an inspired choice when they first did it, and
Mhm.
to Nick's question, I actually don't know
I wonder if this is one of
when
the,
it originates, but
if this is an
yeah,
earlier example of it. And it's
Yeah.
not, in this case, Joseph, he's not chewing the scenery crazily. It's a weird idea that like for some reason William S. Hart has a septuagenarian son
Yes.
that he calls son, and that like the guy calls him Pop. It's it's a weird thing. It's funny.
Well,
Okay, go
I
ahead.
have another question about film history while
Hmm.
we're at it as well, though, because so you mentioned the happy ending, and of course, because of the cut we're watching, it's a bit difficult to tell if it does just come out of left field or not. But regardless, I was wondering, I wonder when they started, when the filmmakers started kind of doing test screenings and
Hmm.
changing things according, like obviously by the time the the late 20s say rolls around, then Hollywood is big enough of you know a kind of huge kind of brand name business, and films are getting awfully expensive, that yes, you are getting you know post-production tinkering, and if anyway. But I'm wondering, at this point, is the industry still kind of young and enough that they're not doing that yet, or when did they start kind of doing
Focus grouping
reshoots or
films.
second guessing their
Yeah, that's
audiences? Or
I have no idea. That's a great question, Clive.
Yeah.
that's shame we don't have a good answer to go with
Let's
it, but
Google that.
Yeah.
Let's Google that and come put a pin in that and come back next time with maybe, or if you at home happen to know or be an expert in this, please send us a link.
no, Nick, you big loser. Everyone knows that the winners among us, we all use Bing, not
Oh,
that
do we?
Google. Yes.
Um, I think I'm gonna go off track here, off path. I'm gonna say that I think this film's kind of interesting in a few different ways. So. Um, I think that they are like I mean I agree with you, Gino, that in a way I like William S. Hart when he's straight up the badass who has his road to Damascus moment and becomes the good guy. Um, but I think they're kind of deliberately taking a step away from that for these two films. I feel like maybe they're trying to tinker with the formula a little bit.
Mhm.
Uh, and in this case, one of the things, as you pointed out, like it's not normally it's a romantic love that causes him to have his kind of realization of, oh, I need to be a better human than I'm being. But in this case, as you point out, it's like a little child, and then when his romantic interest shows up, she's not the usual type that we get because she's the sort of prissy, demanding daughter of the kind of, let's face it, jerk. Uh,
Colonel. Yeah.
who basically, so, so the movie, begins with this guy coming in and demanding to gamble against William S. Hart's character. Um, and at this point, William S. Hart's already having questions about whether he should be continuing down this road because he's been called a parasite. And I really enjoy that scene for the simple reason that he doesn't know what it means, but he knows it doesn't sound good. There's this whole
Right.
where he's like,
Right.
Right.
And they have
I
to
don't want
bring
to
in this
sound
other
to
guy
that.
and they have to bring in Broadway Hammersley. Great name, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to put a pin in that because I have some questions for Clive. But
Mhm.
they have to bring in Broadway Hammersley just to explain what the word parasite means. And then he's like, a parasite is somebody who he says a parasite is somebody who depends on another, just like I'm going to depend on you to give me the check so I can go and get some more booze.
Mhm.
Right.
know?
There are a few nice little gags, actually, throwaway gags. There's another quite a good one. When he decides to, yes, I'm going to stop my gambling, and someone says something along the lines of, "I bet you such amount of money that you can't,"
Yeah.
and they shake hands, and I thought that was a nice little touch.
That was pretty good, yes.
They don't belabor it; it's just a nice
No,
little gag.
it's a good gag. And so I thought the whole scene, so basically what happens in this scene is it's quite complicated really because you've got this kind of a-hole Colonel Bird Ransom, right? And he's a big landowner. He comes in, he's all pushy, he demands to have this to gamble. And then meanwhile, outside the window are his ranch hands who are mostly kind of from south of the border or on the border, right?
Yeah.
And they, in a moment of kind of like you know confusion, right? Because basically the colonel accuses William S. Hart of having cheated because and he hasn't. He's lost fair and square, but he's pissed off. He accused him of cheating. He pulls a gun. William S. Hart pulls a gun, but then everything goes dark. I can't remember how they knock out the lights, and then suddenly there's a shot, but it's actually shot from outside the room, right, by Pedro, I think, right? Pedro is the one who actually kills.
Mhm.
And I thought, it's fairly well mounted that scene. I thought it was like there's a lot to kind of there's a lot of action going on that you have to kind of parse and make sense of, and I thought they did a fairly good job of putting it across. Um, and this is when he really has his moment of like, oh yeah, even when I'm trying to do the right thing, just this very industry that I'm involved in, it's always going to lead me to these moments of death and
Mhm.
you know sadness and stuff. Um, so Anastasio is played by Kisaburo Kurihara.
Mm.
How many other Japanese actors were working playing Mexicans in Hollywood at this point? This was, I just noticed this now while looking at the IMDb. He was from Kanagawa. Seems
Right.
to have done a bunch of silent movies in Japan. And then how did he end up in
Well,
this?
there was the most famous, right, is what's his name? Hayakawa Setsue, right? And he was like a full-on massive movie star of the era. He was in that movie, The Tong Man, for example,
Okay.
playing a Chinese man, but still notable for yeah, in those days. I mean, there was a very brief period of time between Yellow Perils where that could happen, and
Right.
so I'm not that surprised to see someone
So
from Canada
interestingly,
again.
his first appearance is in an American film in 1914 in Omimi-san, written by Thomas H. Ince, who we know well.
Mm,
Um, but the rest of the cast seems to be Japanese, so it's an American film about Japan. That's just fascinating to me. And anyway, he seems to have done a bunch. He plays Mexican characters. He plays various different kind of ethnic roles, including Japanese, possibly Chinese, and then goes back to Japan and continues his film career in Japan.
the thing, right? It's the more you dig, you do find these forgotten little instances in cinema history around the world, that just forgotten, right? Things that you wouldn't think and there they are.
Right.
So to get back anyway, the last couple of things I wanted to say, there's a scene in the film where he's gone back, and at this point he's brought in the daughter, right, who he considers to be the rightful owner of the property that he's won from the colonel. He brings her back from the city, and she, as I said, she's not like the normal sweet Christian ladies that turn his head at all. She's a more difficult, prickly character, right?
Yeah, I felt no chemistry between the two at all, really.
No. um, but that's interesting because it means that they're not just doing the normal, they're not doing the normal thing that
Right.
we expect them to do. But there's this scene where they're trying to run him off, right? They're trying to run William S. Hart off, and he goes into this cabin and they go to hang him. He uses it where he walks towards the camera, rolling a cigarette in one hand, and then he uses the cigarette to escape the trap that they've like I don't know, camera where he set something on fire. He does something anyway. But I remember thinking it was a whole action set piece built up around his cool guy like rolling the cigarette with one hand and then using it to. And for me, I don't think I see anything like that before in these films where there was like a whole kind of like um it seemed very contemporary. I could see that I could see any action movie here. I could see Bruce Willis doing that in the 80s. I could see Jason Statham doing it now. You know, something about uh I don't know. I thought it was cool. Your mileage may vary. Um, did I have everything else I wanted to say? I don't remember. Anyway, I thought there was a little more to it maybe than you were giving credit, Clive.
No,
Yeah,
I mean it's not. Yeah, it's not a step back. It's just not a step anywhere forward, I suppose.
Right.
Which is fine. It doesn't have to
Right.
be. But I
Right.
just the two of them in a row being like that, I thought was kind of interesting.
Right. But I don't know. As I said, I actually I did enjoy both of these. I possibly more than you guys did. But but yeah. Anyway.
yeah. I mean, to wrap up my thoughts on Square Deal, man. Somebody who works for the William S. Hart, park and museum and everything, and like a major historian for the Santa Clarita Valley and everything, he actually flat out told me that he thought that the Square Deal Man was single-handedly the worst film William S. Hart ever made.
Well, that's good for me then, because I liked it. So then, hopefully, nothing will disappoint me. If that's the low benchmark of the man's career, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe if I were to see it in a better print, and maybe if there were, you know, because a better print does help. Like with the
Yep.
next film that we're going to be discussing, it was a far better print, and I found myself enjoying that film much more.
Right.
Um, I
But I
mean,
hate the ending. I hate the ending of this next film. So I'm
oh,
looking
we
forward to
will
unpacking this
discuss
ending.
that. We will discuss that. Hold on a second, fellas. So yeah, to wrap up my thoughts on Square Deal, man, it's it, I'm gonna quote my mother Cheryl, and say it's all right. You know, I mean, you know, it's not gonna blow the roof off the movie houses, but at the same time, too, it's I think his work is of a certain standard and of a certain caliber where I don't think you're ever going to see him plummet to the depths of hell.
Right.
Like you saw like Bela Lugosi do later with the Ed Wood films and all that. Like I don't think William S. Hart, the artist that he was, I don't think he ever plummeted that low.
Right.
But this is just as Clive said, it's not a step backward, it's not a step forward either. It's
Mhm.
just there, you know.
I did too. Maybe my last thing is I'll say I quite liked the fight scene near the end. The
Yeah,
one where William S. Hart comes back in and there's kind of all of the scum of the border, right? And the
yeah,
Rangers sweep in and this kind of big pitch battle. And it was very action packed.
yeah,
Lots of quick cuts, lots of good stunts, and blood, which I'm always kind of surprised to see
yeah.
in silent films, right? It's like there's some gore in there. So I don't know. It's not bad. Yeah, it's no Hell's Hinges, but it's not bad.
Right, right. Do
Yeah,
you have any
fair
final
enough.
thoughts,
Yeah.
Clive?
No, I think that's fair enough.
Okay. Well, then I guess we can move on to our next film. Um, and that film is Wolf Lowry, which was released May 27th, 1917. It was preceded by an unavailable film entitled The Desert Man, which, again, we don't have access to, and thusly we couldn't review it. So Wolf Lowry was released May 27th, 1917. It was produced by Triangle/KB under the supervision of Thomas H. Ince. It was distributed by Triangle, and it was in production between February 3rd and March 21st, 1917. It was directed by William S. Hart with a screenplay by Lambert Hillier from a work called The Rancher by Charles Turner Daisy. It was photographed by Joe August. The art director was Robert Brunton, and the assistant director was Cliff Smith. The cast consists of Tom, aka Wolf Lowry, being portrayed by William S. Hart, Mary Davis being portrayed by Marjorie Wilson, Buck Fanning being portrayed by Aaron Edwards, and Owen Thorpe being portrayed by Carl Ullman. And the plot of this film is, tired of squatters making themselves at home in a cabin on his land, Wolf Lowry scares off the last male claimant to the cabin. Buck Fanning, a crooked real estate agent, then sells the cabin to pretty Mary Davis. Wolf then tries to scare her off too until he meets her. The two become friendly until Fanning comes back and attempts to assault Mary. Lowry hears Mary cry for help and he tussles with Fanning. Fanning shoots Lowry and escapes with his life. After being tended to by Mary, Lowry asks her to be his wife. She begrudgingly accepts. However, unbeknownst to Lowry, Mary's lover Owen Thorpe arrives. She lies and claims Thorpe to be her half brother, and Fanning sets Thorpe up to work at Lowry's ranch. Thorpe and Mary arrange to escape, however, and Fanning injects himself into the mess and alerts Lowry to the plan. Lowry and Thorpe scuffle, and Lowry shoots Fanning. Lowry then ties Thorpe to a tree where wolves circle in. Mary offers to be Lowry's bride and save Thorpe as the wolves continue to circle in. Lowry saves Thorpe on the day of the wedding, and Lowry arranges for Mary to marry Thorpe. The two wed, and Lowry leaves them the ranch and flees to Alaska. As Nick said, I detest this ending. I think it sucks. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think that the ending of this film was the most unsatisfactory ending to a film I've seen, this side of Rex Ray and the Unknown Ranger. I really did not like this ending. I felt so bad for William S. Hart. I mean, sure, granted, the man tied another man to a tree to become a dinner for some wolves. But I think the man still deserved a happy ending.
Yep.
Like, I don't think it was totally without merit. And I don't know. It just felt like such a downer, downbeat ending that I mean, look, we usually get those types of endings in William S. Hart films. We usually do, but this ending, I don't know. It just struck me as something that it just infuriated me. And thinking about it, like even hours afterwards, I was like, geez, he falls in love with this girl, okay, that he could have just as well scared off his land. He allows her to live on his land. He falls in love with her after she plays nurse to him. Doesn't tell him about her lover at all, passes him off as her half brother. And then, she and this Owen Thorpe, plot to escape and possibly elope. And then, Fanning, the walrus that he is, has to interject. And, and then he has to flee to Alaska at the end because, it's like, that's it. Our hero of the film, William S. Hart, sits in a cabin at the end of this film by a fire, all alone, in solitude, and sulks. Iris out, the end. What?
It is a very unsatisfying ending.
Yeah.
However, I will admit to kind of quite liking it just because of the nerve of ending it like that. It's a bit like, oh, okay, that's like, okay, you got some balls on you presenting that totally anticlimactic ending. So, and to do that back then is notable, I would say. It's kind of a memorable, it's a memorably unmemorable ending. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Funnily enough, there's a very little scene. So the To Live and Die in LA, the 1985 film, which has a famously kind of downer ending. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but there is a rare upbeat alternative ending that they did do. I think you can find it on YouTube where
Oh,
yeah.
is that the one where he comes back with a robot hand
No, 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 not
and
that
then
bit. No.
guns down? Oh no, that's the
But that
break.
also
Well,
involves
it
some
also
people
has
sitting around in a hut in the snow, just
that's
kind of yeah, very
yeah.
similarly. Uh,
No, it's funny. There's something weirdly mature and adult about the whole thing that just I don't like. And I
yeah,
never,
doesn't
as
we don't like that kind of thing around here, mature and
no.
adult. No.
As a child, I can always remember I'd see things like films or TV series where like the young man would fall in love with a girl, but then it wouldn't work out. She wasn't right for him, and then he'd find the right girl. But I always remember as a kid being like, no, 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 it must be the first one. What's with this like learning and like no, it would really, really bother me. Despite the fact that my actual life worked out far more like that than it did like any movie where the first person you meet is the one that's you're supposed to be with. Um, but but yeah, no, there's something weirdly downbeat and kind of like particularly his whole choice to well actually you know what, let's jump back a little bit because there's a few things that are so strange about this film. I think parts of this film that work well are actually the things that might really annoy somebody else. All the comedy at the beginning when basically when Wolf Lowry first shows up and he thinks Mary Davis again. Mary Davis looking very fetchingly Winona Rydery as always. Um, she, as we talked about this before, when we talked about her, but she was a director as well. But sadly, everything she directed seems to be not
Oh
excellent.
yeah, that's right. Marjorie Wilson, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, she's really, as always, she's really good. But so he shows up, he's pounding on the door and he's like basically like kind of swearing at her like get off my land, and she opens the door and he's like whoa, and then there's a series of like Mr. Bean type of like scenes of him just like falling over stuff, stepping into pails of things like at one point he's got this massive mud all over his shoes and he comes into the sits down and he's kind of feeling uncomfortable about it and he starts slowly scraping it off his shoe with his hand and putting the mud blobs in his pocket. I
Yes.
was like, who is this William S. Hart? And he's not a bad comic. Like he's a deft hand, I thought, with some of that kind of the goofy stuff. Um,
Well, then you'll really love Tumbleweeds then.
okay, there's a bit more.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Um,
Now, see, that's the side of William S. Hart I don't want to see really in one of his at least one of his westerns. I don't want to see William S. Hart, the
Putting
badass
too much
William S.
sugar in his coffee.
Yes.
yes, yes,
Yes.
yeah. The bumbling William S. Hart is not your William S. Hart.
But
Right.
but but I agree with both of you. I agree with Gino that it's not to my taste necessarily in the same way as I don't really want to see Clint Eastwood as, a romantic lead like
Hmm.
Bridges of Madison County or something.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they're not good at doing it. So to your point, Nick, I think he is good at doing that stuff because he's quite
Mhm.
versatile.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'd rather watch him being cool and
Yeah.
shoot people rather than put too much salt on his pancakes or whatever.
Yeah. I'd rather see him roll a cigarette and
Yes,
With
in
one
one
hand
hand and
and
yeah,
a gun in the
yeah,
other. Yes. Fair enough.
exactly.
yeah.
Um, it's
Sorry, worth mentioning before we carry on, we
Hmm.
forgot to mention, we should mention um, wonderful looking German print of this
Yes.
as
Yes.
well. Nice restoration job.
Hmm.
Sometimes every now and again it's a pleasure just to watch a film that is, I don't know. I mean, some people might say this is to its detriment in a way, but it's so on display, like how carefully put together this version is, that
Yeah.
somehow it feels like a miracle that you're actually watching it playing back like this, and it's just
Yeah.
a joy to see it. Actually, it's like, wow, this thing looks in
Yeah.
good, really good condition.
Yeah, I have the Blu-ray of this that was put up by Film Preservation Associates, and I'm not sure if it comes from the same restoration. It probably does, but yeah, brilliant, beautiful restoration of this. Like the tints, like everything is gorgeous. And I got to give a tip of the hat to the Library of Congress and the folks who, preserved this film because they did an impeccable job with it. And I guess that's why I was a bit more engaged with this film than I was with Square Deal Man, because there was a great print of it.
Mhm.
And I hope that that's not me turning into one of these millennials who can't stand scratches. But, it's like, I don't know. I just found myself a little bit, and maybe it was the story too. I think the story, I mean, I know Clive thinks that both these films are middle of the road, but arguably, I'd say that the story in Wolf Lowry is a bit more arresting than that's in Square Deal Man. Um,
Mm.
and I think that you're right. Even though we may not care for the slapstick side of William S. Hart, there is a bit more nuance to his performance and a bit more nuance to his character than we've seen in the past. Whereas there was really no, I mean, there was character development in that, but it wasn't developing his overarching character that he plays in all of these films in Square
Mm.
Deal Man. So if I were to pick my favorite of the two, it would have to be Wolf Lowry this go round. I don't know what if either one of you agree with me or not, but that's just my thought. I mean, I hate just giving it to Wolf Lowry simply on the basis of the fact that we had a better print of it. I
Mm.
don't want to give it to it just because of that. I think, but I want to give it to it. I want to give it to it on the basis of not only was it a great print, but it was also a stronger story and there was stronger character development in it. And to Clive's uh, hatred of old man sidekicks, there was a lack of that in this film. So
This is true. I think what's interesting to me about it is that it plays out, the first half of it plays out as a kind of, yeah, as like a proto, when Harry met Sally, whatever, like romantic comedy thing, right? With again with William S. Hart as the kind of like fish out of water, bumbling, he doesn't really have the skill set for dealing with this pretty young woman he wants to woo. And then it like shifts gears quite like dramatically in the middle, and then the second bunch of the film is quite sad and
yeah,
increasingly sad as it goes. And that's again an interesting choice because it kind of wrong foots you by thinking, oh, I'm in for this light kind of frothy, fun, romantic comedy western, and then as soon as Owen Thorpe, the much younger and more age-appropriate boyfriend or whatever he is, or fiance for Mary Davis. Um, yeah, and then as I said, it gets like normally in these kind of things, if they want to make the audience hate him, they're going to make him into a cad. But they won't. The movie steadfastly refuses to do the thing that will make you comfortable, which is to make him an asshole, so that you can be like, ah, William. Even if William S. Hart still ends up in Alaska, shivering in a cabin, being sad, you'd still be like. But in this case, it doesn't even. It denies you that because Owen's not that bad a guy. He genuinely is in love with Mary. They have a pre-existing relationship. Um, yeah, so as I was saying, I'm pretty sure it's him that actually says to her, like, he's the one who's uncomfortable with them just running away in the night and not being upfront and honest with William S. Hart's character.
mm-hmm.
Uh, and so that's all I hate all that stuff. I want to dislike this guy. I want him to I want to just feel bad for William S. Hart and I want to hate this young guy who's taken away his one chance at happiness. But the movie denies me even that by making everyone kind of nice and understandable and it's a very adult situation and I just it's one of the reasons why the whole ending just infuriates me. because as
Yeah.
you said, Clive, it's in that way, it's being uh yeah, it's kind of being more mature than you would expect, I think.
Right. Right. Now, is it mature though in a good way? Is this like we hate this ending, but
Mm.
is it a good ending? Like if we're looking at it objectively.
Probably yes. I mean, probably like if I want to be an adult, you know, then yeah, I have to respect it. I have to respect the courage of its convictions. I have to respect its decision to not give me what I want.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me like it.
Right. I mean, I think now this particulars of the situation, I don't think any of us have ever been in, but I think some of us or many of us have been in this kind of a situation where we fell in love with somebody, but this somebody was already in love with somebody else,
Hmm.
and you have no choice but to want to see that other person happy with this other person while you're sitting by the sidelines at the party drinking the punch by yourself with your arm on the mantle of the fireplace, just watching all this going on with a frown on your face. I think we've all, or
Yep.
at least most of us, have been in that type of a
Hmm.
position. And I think that's why you sympathize with William S. Hart so much. And that's why I really detested this ending, because it's like they get to live happily ever after, and they get his ranch too, and they
Yep.
get everything, and he has to go up to Alaska and be by himself in solitude, probably get flu every now and then,
Hmm.
and mining up there. And we're talking Alaska in 1917. We're not talking about Alaska now, which is all populated and everything. We're talking about probably having to deal with freaking polar bears or grizzly bears every day, you
Oh yeah,
know?
yeah. You'll be losing some toes, I think, with
Yeah. The
hypothermia and the rest of it,
right,
frostbite.
right. So yeah, really a sad, sad ending, but I guess a more mature one than you would get in, say, a later film. Like, I don't think you would ever see a Tom Mix film end with an ending like this, or Hugh Gibson or Ken Maynard. I really don't think you would. So, this is a very adult Western, but gosh
Yeah, there's a
darn it.
reason we don't go to Westerns for this. There's a reason we go to
Yeah,
Westerns for wish fulfillment and for fantasy and for action and
yes.
and for the guy getting the girl. And we don't go to it for serious, heart-wrenching melodrama. Um, and yeah, to your point, you're exactly right, Gino. And that's the thing, as I said, especially when you're a teenager and you fall in love with that girl and she's not interested and she likes this other guy and you're pretty convinced he's a jerk, but you've convinced yourself of that because you need to believe he's a jerk, because you need to believe that you're the
Yes.
one she should be with. But when he's not, when he actually is a nice guy who treats her well, then you're like, oh, what do I do with all of this? What do I do with all of this? You know,
Yes.
I have to move
I
to Alaska. That's what I should have done. I should
yeah.
have left high school and went to Alaska.
Yeah, it reminds me of a specific situation in my life where, and I'm going to use names, and
Wait, hang on. Is that a good idea, Gino, in our William S. Hart podcast?
well, I don't know. Like, okay, maybe I think if the people from high school that I had this experience with even listen to anything I do, which I highly doubt. But let me just say this: I was madly in love with Rachel. Okay, I'll use like fake names here.
Okay,
You know,
perfect. That's what's hilarious about that, and is that that there was a girl that I was desperately in love with when I was 14 and 15, whose name is Rachel. Um, uh, she's well aware of all this because it
And
blew
she's
up in
here
my.
tonight.
Yes, this. Yes, no, that's just funny. And this is exactly this. So this is exactly the place in my mind I go to when watching this film. It is I think of Rachel and I think of all the guys that, well, not all the guys, but the few boyfriends she had that I was like, why? Why doesn't she love me? I'm such a nice guy.
yeah,
Treat her
You're
like
so
both not going
well.
to break out the whiskey and we're still going to be here in a couple of hours crying, are we?
No, no,
yeah,
no. Um,
but the situation that I remember was, and again, witness protection names here, but I was madly in love with Rachel, like really in love with her, but she was already deeply involved with Max. And for all intents and purposes, Max was a really nice, really good guy. And I was a bit of a jerk. And I used to make Max feel like the worst SOB who ever walked the face of this earth. And I clearly remember him always saying, Gino, what did I do to you? This film just brought me right back to Rachel and Max in freaking middle school and high school.
Mm.
And it's like, I don't think since The Disciple have I really identified with a William S. Hart film, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah, no, as I said, it is for anyone who has had that experience of actually, it's the one other thing I noticed, and I wondered if this was intentional or not in the film. But there's a scene where it's like it's intercut together. It's the scene where William S. Hart is trying to wrestle with like a goat, and the goat kind of escapes and like runs away out of a bag or whatever, and then it's intercut with it's the point at which he's kind of being cuckolded, right?
Even the goat has left him.
Well, no, it's not that. It was just that, like, so in Sicilian like things, like like the goat horns. That is the symbol of being cuckolded, right? That's what this thing, right? One of the meanings of this thing, right, is the cuckold horns.
Yeah.
And so I wondered if that was actually somebody intentionally was like, oh, he's getting cuckolded, so we'll have a scene where he fails to like wrestle a goat while this young guy is macking
Why
on.
do metal fans do that then? Are they cuckolding you when they do that?
So, do we want to unpack this?
Good old Ronnie James Dio.
Gino knows his metal history.
Yes.
Gino, I'm impressed.
Or sometimes it's also attributed to Gene Simmons, but he adds an extra finger to his. So.
Right. But no.
Then again, Gene Simmons likes to think he invented the world, and he likes to think that he's God, but that's a different story for a different day.
But no, Ronnie James is he's Italian, like he's from an Italian family. So apparently his grandmother used to throw the horns all the time, and so that's where he took it from and took it to metal. So it's the same.
But what was his grandmother? I'm assuming his grandmother wasn't saying rock on. What was she saying?
It wards off. So it also wards off evil.
Wow.
So it's like it's a Sicilian thing for basically like if like almost like touch wood, you know what I mean, like for good luck or whatever, or you know, black cat crosses your path, you give it a bit of that to kind of like control the bad mojo. I for listeners, I realize you can't see me. I'm throwing the heavy metal devil horns as I'm speaking.
So how do we relate this though to William S. Hart's plight in this particular film though?
Well, he's being cuckolded. So in my mind, the goat, the whole scene with the goat was maybe a little no, but I could be reading far too much into that, possibly.
You certainly are.
It's the Sigmund Freud hour with Nick Sheehan.
All I'm saying is it's all very sad. It's all very mature. I don't want any more of this William S. Hart. Please go back to what you do. Being a scary guy whose head is turned by a young, virginal Christian lady. I don't never want to see you freezing your butt off in Alaska again, crying into your mail sack or whatever the hell is going on in that last scene. I mean, literally, he gets a letter at the end from the young couple, be like, "Oh, now we've had a baby," and he's like, "Great, thanks." Like,
and they name it after him.
Oh, and they name it after him, yes.
Yes.
Like, oh.
Yes, salt in the wound.
Yeah.
So, what did you
we had
think?
A lovely dinner today. Oh, you wouldn't have believed it. It was so delicious.
Oh, and the weather down here, good. The sun.
Yes, nice and warm.
So Clive, me and Nick have, shared our hearts out on, experiences we've had. Are you going to be the one guy in this room here who's never experienced any of this? Like what are your thoughts and feelings as to the ending of this film, and if you at all relate to it?
I mean, I guess I'm kind of. I
love how uncomfortable Clive is with this line of questioning. Clive,
I'm kind of surprised how
unrequited love, Clive.
How close
unrequited love.
how close to the surface it is with you two, I suppose, is what surprises me. Yes, I have these experiences,
But
but
you have buried them deep.
yeah, they're long buried, and I've been doing all right for a while, so I'm not. I don't really feel particularly resentful anymore. For which I suppose I should feel lucky, and I can only pity you both. That's all I can do, I
Yeah,
suppose.
it's like you're the Deborah Barone in this situation. We're the Raymonds who kept a breakup tape from our girlfriend that from the 80s.
Yes,
Remember
you
that
can keep
episode?
each other warm in the hut in Alaska, though, if that's any consolation.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. It's all very, as I said, it's all very sad. It's all very mature. And
Right,
William,
right.
don't take me to these dark places again, William. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's get back to ass kicking.
Yeah, happy things.
Yeah, there was, I mean, there was barely even
Yes.
any fighting in that last half that film. It was
Yeah.
again, it was just all sad. It was all just sad adult stuff.
And that's what
Which is
and
notable. It's been more of a talking point than we might have thought while
yeah.
originally
Hmm.
watching it, right? Um,
Seems like
yeah. No, it'd be
yeah.
interesting to see what's
Yeah,
what's up
what's up
next.
next? Yeah, I know. Like the way
Yeah.
they're. All right, so I'm gonna leave it with I think these are both more interesting maybe than Clive might have just because, as I said, I think they're doing some other things with the formula.
Mhm.
Whether I love those things or not, it depends.
Right.
Um, I didn't necessarily love what they were doing in Wolf Lowry at the back half of the film, but I did enjoy the comedy that they were trying out in the front half.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I don't know. But I kind of want him to get back to what he does well.
Right. Right. Get, stick to form.
Mm.
I'm kind of interested how much we've managed to milk out of these two films, though, considering I didn't find them that interesting to watch.
Mm.
They have served as talking points.
Mhm.
But I understand you're wanting to you know you're wanting to push back the time when you have to stop recording and you retreat to your Alaskan hut. So
It
it's
is. It's
it's
very cold
entirely
up.
understandable.
I mean, I do actually live in Canada, guys, so it really isn't funny. It's
And you don't have doors on your house as well, so
don't
it's a
have
lot
doors in
like
the
a house.
house. The windows
Yeah.
aren't sealed properly either. I've come to realize lately. So it's
Oh,
all.
really?
Oh yeah, yeah. I bought some sort of death trap, Clive. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, all right. So, Gino, shall we sign off?
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for listening to this, the latest episode of Heart to Heart, the William S. Hart podcast. I have been Gino Cuddy. That's been Clive Davis. And that has been Nick Sheehan. And we all want to thank you all for continuing to listen to our podcast and for supporting us. You could find our podcasts wherever you find good podcasts: Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, you name it, it's there. And please also join the Facebook group, Heart to Heart, the William S. Hart podcast fan group on Facebook, where we regularly post in there and have a lot of fun in there. So please join us for the ride there. And on top of all that, thank you all for listening. And in the words of William S. Hart, adios, amigos. God bless you all, each and every one. Good night.
This has been a Gino Cuddy podcast production.